Japanese lawmakers, Mr. Hatoyama stressed a change in his main policy goals, and that's now triggered tension not just in Japan but right across the Pacific.
Change was evident in the new Prime Minister's speech. First, it was very long, lasting about 50 minutes. In 2001, Junichiro Koizumi spoke only half that long. The length underscores Hatoyama's passion, trying to convey everything the DPJ has done since the August election. Another change was his interpretation of Japan's decades-long alliance with the U.S.
The cornerstone is a close and equal alliance with the U.S. By saying equal, I mean that I believe the relationship should be the one where Japan can frankly and proactively propose guidelines and policies to contribute to the world peace in the alliance.
A new direction in Japan's foreign policy, and a new headache for the United States. Last week saw the uneasiness begin. U.S. Defense Secretary Robert Gates was the first member of Barack Obama's cabinet to visit Japan. His aim was to clear the way before the president's Asian tour next month. There is increasing concern among U.S. officials as Japan moves to redefine its alliance with the United States and its place in Asia. The Tokyo government would face serious consequences if it reneges on a military realignment plan formulated to deal with a rising China. The warning came when Gates met with Hatoyama on October 21st. The day before, Gates had declined invitations to dine with Defense Minister Toshimi Kitazawa. He had also refused to attend a welcome ceremony at the ministry. Back in Washington, the Washington Post ran a picture of a grumpy Gates. The Defense Secretary's temper has brought to the surface the many changes in the DPJ-led government's national security agenda. In September, Japan announced the end to its refueling mission in the Indian Ocean that backs up U.S. forces in Afghanistan. As an alternative, it's considering sending warships to help refuel vessels combating piracy off Somalia. The U.S. wants Japan's help in Afghanistan, but has shown some flexibility.
As far as we're concerned, that's a decision that's up to the government of Japan.
But on another issue, the U.S. decided to play hardball. In 2006, the two nations agreed to shift 8,000 Marines on Okinawa to the U.S. territory of Guam by 2014. The plan includes the relocation of the Futenma airfield to the Camp Swamp area, also on Okinawa. But the plan has met local resistance. During the election campaign 2 months ago, Hatoyama spoke of moving the airfield out of Okinawa, if not the country. It has become a sticking point ahead of Obama's visit.
Without the Futenma realignment, the Futenma facility, there will be no relocation to Guam, and without relocation to Guam, there will be no consolidation of forces and return of land in Okinawa.
Gates had hoped to depart from Tokyo with a firm agreement in place. Instead, he got nothing but a garbled message from the Japanese Prime Minister. Mr. Gates' presence in Japan doesn't mean we have to decide everything. Some experts say that Hatoyama has to drag on the issue.
Mr. Hatoyama has vowed to pursue a more equal relationship with Japan's closest ally, but it seems on this issue Washington will not budge. Mr. Hatoyama needs to balance the Japanese voters' expectations with the security needs of his country. Otherwise, he has to face criticism from his coalition partner, the Social Democratic Party, and others in his own party.
Although Japan made some compromise, reaching agreement is still out of the picture. For decades, the U.S. and Japan have maintained amicable diplomatic relations. Now, things have changed. Hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. These famous monkeys in a Japanese shrine characterizes the government's past method of dealing with the U.S. military presence. 2010 will be the 50th year since the conclusion of their revised security treaty. It constitutes the core of their military alliance. But more than 60 years ago, the U.S. was part of the anti-fascist alliance that defeated Japan. Japan now hosts 88 American bases. 14 are on Okinawa. The islands are 1,600 kilometers south of Tokyo and the reluctant host to about half the U.S. troops in Japan. Many locals associate the bases with crime, noise, pollution, and accidents. In 1955, the body of a 6-year-old girl was found raped at Kadima Base. In 1995, a 12-year-old schoolgirl was raped by 3 U.S. servicemen. Outrage flares periodically, but the U.S. cannot afford to lose Okinawa.
Okinawa has a very important strategic geographic location. It is the door to the East China Sea, connecting Japan to the north and the Philippines to the south, so the U.S. sees it as a critical military beachhead in East Asia.
The U.S. military presence is the legacy of the Cold War. But improved international relations in East Asia have decreased its value. Japan now seeks to develop a much wider space, the Asia-Pacific region. That goal is reflected in foreign policy under Hatoyama and the DPJ. When reshaping the decades-old alliance, Hatoyama envisions an East Asia community. That is an Asian version of the European Union, with China, Japan, and South Korea at its core. Hatoyama pushed the idea at their trilateral summit and the annual ASEAN summit last month. I think, so far, Japan has been exclusively relying on the United States. While believing the Japan-U.S. coalition is important to us, Japan, as one of the Asian countries, will value relations with Asian countries more from now on. Hatoyama's call for the creation of the East Asian community means the U.S. would be shut out. For the Obama administration, burdened with many challenges, troubles with its closest ally in Asia adds a new complication. And for Japan, a new administration is committed to being more independent in its foreign policy. After 5 decades of living in close harmony, Tokyo is starting to drift with the changing environment of East Asia. And that provides the DPJ government with an opportunity to change. Hatoyama's message was not just for lawmakers, but the world.
Well, it could well be that Secretary Gates is playing bad cop to Barack Obama's good cop when the president visits Tokyo on the first leg of his Asian visit in mid-November. That would permit Mr. Obama to allow the new Japanese government to win some face by reopening the negotiations. Then, after due reflection, Mr. Hatoyama could graciously concede the need to build a replacement airfield over in Okinawa. Everybody is happy. Now, that's just one scenario, but there's also the possibility that the American side will dig in its heels, insist a deal is a deal, and decide that for the sake of a future alliance, it must demonstrate early on who is still in charge.